Hey y'all, I'm Derek, and welcome back to 31 Days of Found Horror. Okay, so yesterday was a bit of a buzzkill, so I'm hoping today's movie sort of makes up for it. This is a movie called Wendigo. No, not the Wendigo that we saw a couple of days ago. This one is just called Wendigo, a Slenderman story. So they are putting the Wendigo myth with the Slenderman myth. Well, they both live in the woods, and both are used as excuses for people missing. Okay, I'm game, why not? Let's get started. While I was watching this movie, I was eating popcorn. I had to check to see if someone laced my popcorn with acid. This movie was crazy. And it's just what we needed after yesterday. Let's go. Okay, so the Providence basically it's a collection of video footage that was from the summer of 2004. Remember the summer of 2004? I was in college, I was thin, and I lived in my parents' basement. Memories. And then they shoot to random shots of stock footage. They literally say they're shooting stock footage or B-roll for the movie. And it's 4 people on their way to meet another person who's meeting them up in a town called Bonneville. Apparently this is Canadian, so yay, Canada, please do good today. And they get to Bonneville and they're in a junkyard and they set up camp in a junkyard. They seem to be actually filming a movie, so I guess they're setting up here because they want to do a Mad Max sort of ripoff for a college class. And the director of the movie is named Rhys Emerson. Yes, Rhys Emerson. If that doesn't sound like white privilege, I don't know what does. And he goes to have an interview with the landowner who is not having any of their shenanigans. And the camera guy decides that he's going to go and scout for locations. And he can't find any decent looking locations and he's forlorn about that, but he does find the lake that was in the movie The Light that we saw in the first week of the show. Do you remember that time when everything was funny? And at this point, this really angry French-Canadian guy comes up and talks with the guy who owns the house. And he's like, I paid you 6 months ago for that shed and you haven't brought in the shed. Why haven't you done the shed? And I'm like, well, this seems rather random. Little did I know that this guy would have a very bizarre plot point. So the French guy leaves and they decide to build a fire and the uncle starts saying, there's something in them woods over there. I should mention at this point that we've already been told that these kids are film students who are making a documentary about deforestation. The next day, and they're driving to the filming location, and it just happens to be the house of the fat French guy who was very upset about the shed. So they decide to talk to him, and he starts talking, oh, you're doing a film, I see. Oh, sort of like Angela Lansbury. I like that Angela Lansbury. Ooh. And they decide to use him as an interview for this movie about deforestation. And apparently they found the one guy in the world who's for deforestation. And so they start interviewing the French guy who's like, oh, I love deforestation. That's how I made all my money, you know. Then they tried to play a joke on him and say, well, you know, Angela Lansbury doesn't really like deforestation. Could you say something against deforestation for Angela Lansbury? Like Angela Lansbury is going to watch this horrible piece of film school work you're doing? Oh, and the camera work is god-awful for film students. If this is supposed to be a documentary for a film class, y'all obviously slept through most of the technical bits. These kids really are jerks. They really are. They're playing around with this guy with no intention of using this footage, but they're not even making it plausible that they are. They make him hug a tree, for God's sakes. So then they go into the woods and they actually start filming the documentary. And they have a guy who's supposed to be an actor and he is playing the most caricature of actors. He's insecure. He's wondering what his motivation is from moving from point A to point B. Should he be wearing glasses? Oh my goodness, I just can't remember this one line. Oh. So there's literally 5 minutes of them just trying to motivate him to get this one sentence out, with finally getting it out with the promise of hookers and blow after they get this one sentence out. Nice work if you can get it on a college student's salary. They go to a trailer in the middle of the woods and they're talking to two guys for reasons. It doesn't have anything really to do with the documentary they're shooting or anything. It's literally one of the guys who lives in the trailer talking about his favorite place to sit in a strip club. Then it cuts to them trying to shoot a scene with a girl. They're trying to do like the Iron Eyes Cody commercial from the 1970s where he's like standing by the freeway and just one single tear comes down his cheek, except she's in a boat picking up a bottle. And it's just tedious. I mean, I'm so glad tediousness is found all over the world because I really thought that America had a corner on that market. Then they cut back to the trailer and they're playing cards like they are staying there, but if that's so, why did they set up camp? Continuity! What's that? They're playing poker, they're getting drunk. One of the guys who lives in the trailer goes absolutely crazy, and so they kick him out. Then there's a title card that says several hours pass, which nothing of note occurs. Well, they could have put that at the beginning of the movie. I'm so witty! Then it cuts to camera guy watching this girl get out of her tent and walk out into the woods. Found footage nightmare. Why are you recording this? Why are they recording this, Pogue? She doesn't know. It makes no sense. Why would they be recording this in the middle of the night? And they go to the next morning and they're going to go look for the girl because she's missing. Why didn't you follow her to begin with? You saw her walking in a trance into the woods and you didn't stop to think maybe we should stop her? Obviously, y'all ain't friends. Because at least one of my friends would have been like, hey, she's on the good stuff. Where are you going? You gonna get more? At least that used to be my friends. I really don't have many friends nowadays. I made myself sad. So the remaining people split into two groups and they go searching for the girl. And there's only seems to be 3 people in this area. And there's only like 3 people left apparently because 2 people went home and 1 girl's missing. The camera guy's by himself and Reese and his girlfriend are there and they have a camera too. Our original camera guy makes a call to the other group with Reese and he said he's been looking over the footage and it's all screwy. And then the camera guy just happens across the guy who lives in the trailer walking through the woods for no reason, and that really doesn't go anywhere. It's just setting up that there's something going on in the woods. But then he runs into his uncle digging a hole in the middle of the woods, and he's asking what's going on. And the uncle's literally just burying videotapes. And I mean, actual classic videotapes. But he's doing so ominously. And he runs into the other group who's just basically sitting under a tree, and his shirt's like completely ripped off. At this point, the film is getting really glitchy. I know it's supposed to amount to paranormal activity. The problem is that it's happening so often, it's getting annoying. It's actually getting in the way of us understanding the story, if you know what I mean. And he sends the other group back into the camp while he's going to continue searching, but then it just cuts to nighttime and they're all going to go search again. Why search at night? Then noises happen, the camera guy ends up waking up next to this lake in the middle of the woods and theater coughs. I mean, it's really theater coughing. You know, that kind of coughing, the kind that sounds like you're supposed to be drowning. And there's just random shots and there's weird filters and none of this means anything. And then he walks into the lake. He's trying to ford the lake while wearing a bag and holding a camera, making sure the camera is pointed at him so you can see him fording this lake. Honestly, at this point, I thought I was having a really bad acid trip. And the thing is that this whole shot would have been engaging if I were invested and not bored, because I don't like any of these characters and the plot line's just and then he finds the girl that they were looking for initially. And she's dead. Then he just runs and he comes across a road and there's a truck on the road and the truck stops, his uncle gets out. and he says, "I'm gonna kill you." And so he's being chased by his uncle. And then the fat French guy shows up and says, "Hide." And the French guy just kills his uncle. What is going on? I am literally surprised a guy dressed as a mime doesn't come out smoking a cigarette going, "Beware this crew. We should all smoke." Or some random crap like that, because that would make as much sense as anything else that's happened in this movie. And he saves the camera kid. But instead of really saving him, he ties him up in his basement with power cords, ties him up. He just starts doing the whole Batman and Joker thing. He's like, "What does your uncle want with my land?" Where does this come from? Where did this come from? Why is this happening? Why does this character exist? The French guy thinks that the camera guy's uncle wants to steal the French guy's land. So you knock the uncle out and then you tie up the camera guy who hasn't seen him in years, trying to interrogate him for something that was never brought up to begin with in this entire freaking movie? What's going on? This literally could have ended with the French guy, oddly enough, saving the camera guy, because nothing else in this ending is going to make sense. I'm just telling you. So the French guy goes into his kitchen, turns on the music, and is going through his knife drawer, and all of a sudden the camera shows that the bathroom door opens. Nobody's there. So of course the French guy is like, "Pourquoi?" And he goes into the bathroom, the door slams, and then there's a puddle of blood coming out from underneath the door. Movie, please. Tell me. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do to make you make sense? Huh? And then the camera guy's friends just run in and try to save him. What am I supposed to do? Where is this coming from? I'm so confused. And my face is so red. So they find the French guy dead, they find the camera guy in the basement, and then they're all saying that it's a cult, they're all a cult. I'm like, what is with the Call of Cthulhu crap all of a sudden? Why? There's a cult dedicated to Slenderman? And it's all middle-aged guys? The last people I heard being influenced by the whole Slenderman thing were a couple of 13-year-old girls. Whatever, let's keep going. Because the movie is. And they all have guns for some reason. Where do they get the guns? And then everybody just starts killing each other. This Call of Cthulhu crap just doesn't work all the time, people. Especially when you're in a movie that's about a Wendigo, but actually is about Slenderman. Honestly, where's the mime? Life is cruel, mon petit. Oh my god, somebody please re-edit this movie with a French mime who just pops up every now and again, smoking a cigarette going, "Life is cruel, ma petite," for no reason. It wouldn't be scary, but it would be funny as all get out. Life is cruel, ma petite. Ooh la la, les Wendigo. Ooh la la, les Slenderman. Oh, my squeaker's broken. And then there's acting. And the First Nation kid shows up for some reason, and he just drives a car into all these middle-aged cult members trying to kill his friends, and he blows up, and they blow up, and Reese, the director, and the camera guy start throwing fisticuffs. I guess they're being infected by the Cthulhu cult, but they knock out the camera guy, and Reese and his girlfriend head out, but the camera guy is now in the back of the truck, and then they have to stop so that Reese can get into the back of the truck, and then they're rolling the truck slowly so that they can have one last fight so that the camera guy can just be tossed gently off the back of the truck. And that could have been the end of the movie. But then they cut to a freaking interview with the camera guy who apparently survived the massacre and the police, and the camera guy turns into Slenderman. Y'all, this movie was bonkers. It made no sense whatsoever, and nobody knew what they were talking about. I'm mad and confused. I don't know what else to say about this movie. I've literally tried to make sense of it, but it just makes no sense. And I don't know. It's absolutely bonkers. So have you seen this movie before? If so, leave me a note down below and tell me what you think. And of course, if you want to see the movie, call your pusher man and click the link in the description. Well, that's it for this episode of 31 Days of Found Horror. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. And come back tomorrow for another found footage nightmare.